You're listening to The Donor Doctor Show, where your host, James Newberry, will help you improve the health of your fundraising. Now over to James.
Hello, this is The Donor Doctor, and I have a couple important announcements today. But before that, I'd like to introduce my sister, Diane Newberry-Lott. Say hi.
Hello.
Now, your first job was you were a flight attendant, is that correct?
That is.
And it was for the Trump shuttle, is that correct?
Yes, Trump shuttle was the old Eastern shuttle that covered the route from D.C. to New York and Boston to New York.
You had some interesting people you met. I remember John Gotti, the Teflon Don.
Oh, I sure did, yes.
Yes, and he was likable, right?
He was very well dressed.
Yes.
And very likable, and he asked for a Diet Coke, and I handed it to him, and I don't remember ever having such a shake in my hand delivering a soda in my life. But he was very nice.
And you said you also met Robert Altman, who was Wonder Woman's husband.
Yes, and I've actually attended a few parties where he's a friend of one of our good friends, and he's a very nice guy. He was going through some trials at the time. And,
yeah, you could say that.
Yes. But I guess he's come out all right, and he has the Wonder Woman as a wife, so he's doing all right.
That's right. She wasn't as friendly as he was, is the story.
Well, not at the time. I think it was a stressful moment.
Oh, okay. Now, you said that you really liked Robert Redford.
Oh, he was beautiful. Yes.
Yes, but you hated Bob Costas.
He was a jerk, yes.
And you know what? I would have thought he was a jerk.
Yes.
Yes, he comes across as a jerk.
Well, you're not wrong.
And you met Brooke Shields, too. And
I did.
She gave you a nice compliment. We won't talk about that. But anyway, you married, and then you moved to Kentucky around 25 years ago. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's about right. My husband, Chet, and I moved to the Lexington area to franchise Domino's Pizza. We moved there thinking we would put somebody in charge and then head back to McLean or the Arlington area. And we ended up loving it, so we stayed. And now we have children and roots and friends and everything it takes.
Now, you said a place like Kentucky is not like Washington, D.C. or maybe Phoenix, where there's so many transplants. It's kind of easy to move in and establish friendships.
Right.
And Kentucky was a little bit hard at first. Is that right?
It was harder, and I also think it's our military upbringing. When we moved around, we would usually go to places where other military brats were coming along, and they're all welcoming because that's their normal lifestyle.
Way it was.
Right.
Sure, absolutely.
So in Lexington, I don't feel that they had many newcomers, and it was kind of difficult in the beginning, but Chet and I just forged through, and we made some great friendships, and now we couldn't dare leave them.
Now, it's interesting. You actually have deep roots in Kentucky. Our great-grandmother was born there in the 1870s or 80s or something.
Lola Daisy.
That's right. And she married a Lebanese Orthodox storekeeper, Sam Jabor.
Right.
And I met him. I think he died before you were born.
Right.
But we both attended the 100th birthday party for his brother, Uncle Ed. And he was made a Kentucky colonel. You remember that? It was in Oklahoma City.
Yes.
And then we learned why he really moved from Kentucky. Do you remember?
Tell me.
Well, it was because he got busted running a craps game in the back of the store. So, but he became a colonel, so I guess they've forgotten. They've forgiven him.
That's a forgiveness.
But that's the kind of story that your families don't share with you. I kind of have to dig out.
It took 100 years to hear that one.
That's right. Now, years ago, I met Senator Jim Bunning, of course, also a great baseball pitcher. Mm-hmm. And I said, do you know, I think you know my sister, Diane Lott. And he says, oh, I really like your sister. She's the best of the lot. As play on words there.
Yes, of course. My father-in-law's in politics, so
right.
we were... We got to be together a few good times, so that's a nice compliment.
That is. Now, you've hosted a couple fundraisers, several fundraisers, as I recall.
Well, yeah, a few, and the most recent one actually was just about a year and a half ago, and we had Andy Barr, our representative from the Lexington area and beyond, and we also had Steve Scalise. He was with him, right. And it was my first time to meet Steve Scalise, and he was a wonderful fella, and I really loved him. My kids met him, and we had a great evening together, and it was a crushing blow to hear about the tragedy that hopefully he's making through, doing okay.
Seems to be doing better.
Yeah, but that was, it hit home.
Sure. Now, a lot of people are nervous about having an event at their house, so a lot of things can go wrong. What advice would you give to somebody?
Well, things will go wrong. You have to just kind of roll with the punches. Try to plan as much as you can in advance, I would think. And in order to make people feel happy and comfortable, I try to relax. Because if you are comfortable, hopefully they will be as well. Right.
Well, that's an important thing. This has been a tough year, of course, for you and me. Around a year ago, I was going to church on our dad's birthday, and he had a hard time walking, and they did a bunch of tests, and it wasn't leukemia when we were relieved.
Right.
But then we found out he had MDS, which is myelodysplastic syndrome, which is not as bad, but it's still grim and
it's bad enough.
It's bad enough. Yes, that's right. He did rally.
Yeah.
He went to MD Anderson and got better, and then he got, of course, worse, and real quickly got worse. Now, some of you in here may think, well, what does that have to do with fundraising? Well, it has actually a lot, because some of the best letters I've written have an element of suffering in them that where the signer really connects with the donor. And I'm going to read you an example of what I'm talking about. And this was a letter that really broke the bank. And it's signed by Ellen Carnifel. It's her story. And how would you describe this?
This is a beautiful stationery, nice cardstock, and it has a lilac color with a beautiful handwriting, personalized.
Well, it's interesting. It's personal yet not personal. In other words, there's not somebody's. It doesn't read Dear Diane. It does, because there's no variable copy.
Right.
So that's on the reply. But I'd just like to read you a little bit about it. And this, of course, part of this is the emergency she's facing. But the personal nature of this also adds, because there are others tried in the past without this that didn't do as well. I was going to send you a Christmas card wishing you peace and joy this holiday season, but right before Thanksgiving I got the worst news I received since the deaths of my sister and niece this year. The state of Ohio safety inspector failed Noah's Lost Ark, giving us 6 months to make improvements that will cost, page 2, nearly $500,000. Of course, I understand the need for greater safety due to the Zanesville tragedy in 2011. By the way, that is when somebody let go 50 animals before killing themselves. They had to shoot 30 tigers.
It's terrible.
It was terrible, and they've understandably cracked down on it. But of course, she's never had a safety incident, so they're going too far.
Right.
Yeah, right. But you should know that since then, Noah's has already spent $1,181,150 to comply with these new state safety laws. And of course, that's giving an exact sum is more believable than you just said.
You didn't round up.
Exactly. Plus, we've passed safety inspections with flying colors for the last 3 years and have a clean record. It's not fair that they keep moving the goalposts on us. In this season of giving, will you send an emergency gift? And of course, it goes on from there. And of course, and a key ingredient for credibility is we put the failed inspection in here.
Right.
So they can see for themselves that they didn't pass it. That I think most people would believe her. But if you are a doubting Thomas...
Right. No, this is official.
It is official.
No, it is, yeah.
There's the signature of the guy failing her, giving her only 6 months. They did delay that, so that was useful. But this is the kind of... I read the letter here. The problem with reading a letter is that it's hard to get the same. You really need to see it, or an envelope. I can describe it to you.
Right.
But it's easier to see it. And that's why I've decided to write an ebook.
Is this the big news?
Yeah, that's one of the two.
Okay.
The other one is that I'll be discontinuing the podcast in the next few months.
And that's the sadness.
That's the sad and good. You got to get both.
Okay.
So that's why you want to give me your email at donordoctorshow@gmail.com if you haven't, to to be on the list for the ebook, or you can go to my website also there too, because it will be coming out later this summer.
Will there be a lot of pictures of you? Centerfolds?
No. I don't know if there'll be any pictures of me. If you want. It's not about the donor doctor.
Think about it.
It's not about the donor doctor. Okay. Anyway, that's the power of stories combined with suffering. I've seen it many times. Really evokes a response.
Right.
So it's something you want to put in all your communications when possible. It works better in a personal letter than it would in an email, for example. But whenever you can, you want to do that. So that's a couple of things. The book is, I think it's going to be useful. If you found the podcast useful, I think you're going to like the book better, because you'll be able to get to see a lot of the techniques that I've talked about and actually see the actual letter.
Right.
For example, we had Stuart McLean on, and we talked about his rose tube mailing that he did for the Reagan Presidential Library, where the donor signed and returned the rose and was given to Nancy Reagan for her birthday.
Oh.
This was in People magazine.
Wonderful.
So we have that letter. We have...
that's something you have to see.
It's something you have to see, absolutely. We have, one of my favorite political letters is this one here. And it has... one of the concepts I've talked about is the importance of flavor. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Flavor Flav, like the rap artist?
No, I'm talking about making your language more like that guy, Justin Wilson. You remember him, the Cajun chef?
I think.
He would put all the cayenne pepper and...
cayenne?
Yeah, he would say, guarantee.
Guarantee,
yes.
Yeah. Okay,
you want your copy not to be bland. It needs to be flavorful. Don't worry about offending somebody who's not going to give to you anyway. You want to excite your base. So here's a letter I wrote for my friend Vernon Robinson, who he came in first, but then he lost in the runoff, so he never got elected to Congress. But he raised a lot of money, so that's
okay.
That's the key as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
As far as my
you
role.
Did your role.
I did my role. Yes. This is the start. I happen to be a black man, but the only thing I have in common with Barack Obama is a good tan. While Obama was smoking marijuana and snorting cocaine as a young man, I was earning merit badges to become an Eagle Scout. And while Obama was hanging out with terrorists such as Bill Ayers, who bombed the U.S. Capitol and Pentagon, I was serving my country as a missile combat crew commander and intelligence officer. Enclosed is a photo of one of the proudest days of my life, the day I graduated from the U.S. Air Force Academy. As an officer, I proudly took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It is with this same spirit of service and patriotism I recently declared my candidacy.
Powerful.
It is. Well, it's better than most, that's for sure. And for Democrats out there, I've rewritten this. Okay.
Okay. How does that go?
Because I have a friend who I play basketball with.
Yes.
Who's running for Congress, and he's a Democrat. He's a retired Marine Colonel.
Okay.
And of course, unfortunately, he has good hair. But this is how I would do it if he didn't have good hair.
Okay.
I happen to be an old white guy, but the only thing I have in common with Donald Trump is bad hair.
That will work for a lot of people.
Or, it's true, or high alimony payments, or whatever it is. So anyway, pick your devil. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
But write to your audience. Don't be so fearful of offending people that aren't going to donate to you anyway. And, people say, well, humor's not useful. I think it is.
No, I disagree with that.
Yeah, because you're saying, oh, okay, this is going to be fun. This is not going to bore me.
Right.
And that boredom is the biggest sin. There's no greater sin than being boring.
Ah.
Yeah.
Really?
It really is.
What about murder and...
Okay, murder's worse. Murder and fraud and embezzlement are worse than boredom. Okay, I'll grant you that. But boredom is a sin, and that's why I'm saying that. It is a mistake. It is going to cost your charity or your political candidacy or whatever you're doing money. Mm-hmm. And don't be so cautious.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Well, I'd like to talk about the book. I have a lot of the things that are going to be in it. A great discussion on envelopes. I do like Herschel Gordon Lewis's book, Open Me Now. But I think that what I do is maybe even better than what he did as far as actually showing you samples of different kinds of carriers, which ones worked, which ones didn't work. I think that's going to be quite useful. Another thing that will be good to have is Craig Capp's checklist. Craig Capp was a guy I worked with. He had an advertising background, really quirky guy. I mean, quite a character. I'll just tell you one story with Craig. That Craig didn't suffer fools gladly, and there was somebody on the staff that he just hated because he didn't think he was pulling his weight. And Craig asked me, what is he saying behind my back? And I said, he's not talking behind your back. He says, I know he's talking behind my back. And he says, will you not tell anybody? He says, I've never betrayed a trust in my 32-year career. So I said, well, he says he's going to outlast you. The company, which he did because Craig died later. But Craig slammed down his Spanish Bible. So he'd read a Spanish Bible every day.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. He had no connection to it.
That's interesting.
He'd dream in German and read a Spanish Bible.
Wow. And
so there was like a big brouhaha, as you can imagine. And then an hour later, I said, Craig, I thought you said you never... He says, not till now. So you have Craig's dying advice, one of his letters. You have several other letters that have worked for me for museums, animal groups, troop support, some of the other ones, some good leads, how to write them, advice on overcoming writer's block, for example. It's just a lot of tips and techniques. The techniques are not appreciated by the average person. I had an experience where there was somebody who was pretty good at he'd produce TV ads, and he could do as good on a prospecting, to regular people. But he was weak on the house copy, which is so much on rapport, relationship building,
right.
And techniques. Some people call a technique a gimmick. You could say the tube if it was a gimmick in a sense, but it engaged people. Mm-hmm. People could send it back and know that the rose they sponsored was given to Nancy Reagan.
Right.
And that's a big deal. People like that. There's not enough of that. So you want to do more of that. Now, you actually participated in probably the best fundraising event of the last 10 years.
I did?
Yes, you did the ALS Bucket Challenge.
Oh, I did. Oh, my gosh. Wasn't that a powerful...
They raised over $100 million.
Unbelievable. And honestly, I had never heard of ALS. I mean, it was true.
The Lou Gehrig disease, yeah.
I didn't...
They think he now got it because he had a bunch of concussions, playing baseball.
Right.
Because they had football players, it's more common. But he'd had a number of concussions. Mm-hmm. He'd never take a day off. Lou Gehrig wouldn't. I imagine there was somebody... I've said this before, who probably said, I don't know if that's dignified enough for us. I bet you there was somebody. And they would have cost them a fortune.
Exactly.
But they, what, and I said this earlier, it reminds me a little bit of like when we were kids, they'd have the teacher or some sixth grader, if you're a third grader, in the dunking pool. And you'd want to hit it,
Oh, right, yeah. Exactly.
So it's just an adaptation of that. But it was the best adaptation I've ever seen.
It swept the nation. It
was a craze, and that's what you really want. You want to stand out. You don't want to do something that everybody else has done.
Right.
And there have been groups that have tried things like, shooting mustard at people or whatever. But who wants the mustard?
I wouldn't like that one.
It's not quite the same thing as the bucket challenge. So you participated in that. I did. I didn't
You
participate.
didn't do it. We can do it today. Let's do it today.
Oh, okay. Absolutely. Anyway, Diane, I appreciate you having me as a guest. You've had an eventful life.
It's not a bad one.
Yes, and it's been a tough year, but it's going to get better for us. So
yeah, I think so too.
Absolutely. So anyway, till next time, be on the lookout for my book. Give me your email address, and so I want you to be able to get it because I think it'll help you in your work. Thank you. Signing out. Bye.
Bye.